Hey everyone, and welcome to this Hubscale webinar. Thanks so much for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tom. I work in the startup go-to-market team at Hubscale. I'll be the host today, but it's not about me today. So delighted to welcome a man who needs no introduction. Don, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hey Tom, thanks for having me, man.
So why are we all here? Well, Don's gonna school me on how to differentiate in today's market, basically. So yeah, let's waste no time. Don, why do you think the Torq brand has become so recognizable, so desirable?
Thank you. I hope it is. Yeah, no, I mean, and we've talked about this before, but I think like the industry as a whole, I've talked about this, is like we're kind of suffering from this sameness epidemic, right? Where, I think a lot of the behavior, a lot of the activity, a lot of the like look and feel of these companies tend to be the same. And whether that's a booth at RSA or Black Hat or a website or, a white paper, everything just has this very similar look and feel and tone. And so it's challenging because there's a lot of noise. And so, you're fighting against and there's a lot of vendors too, right? Like if you walk the RSA floor or Black Hat's, like there's a lot of vendors, there's a lot of noise in our industry. And knowing that, like we took a very different approach from the beginning with the visual identity and the tone and the style of Torque. Um, and that's worked. I think people, we're not blue and green, we're not the cartoon style. We are very much a loud, bold brand. And it's easy to cut through if a lot of stuff looks the same and then you come in with like monster trucks, chainsaws, and skeletons. So it's like just it looks different. So I think that's a big part of why we've been able to cut through is just the look and feel of the brand.
Sure. Yeah, completely agree. The brand DNA just seems to be so different. Why do you think that's so important? And how did you come up with it? How did you cultivate that?
Yeah. And as we get into it, Tom, like I definitely want this to be interactive. So if there's a
Yeah.
way that anybody can ask questions, this can be really free flowing. We can talk a lot about Torque and our brand, but if there's specific questions about anything or you want more clarity, like if there's folks that are here that want to ask a question, I think Tom and I are both open to that. So would
Yeah,
love for
fire
this to
away,
be
guys.
yeah, interactive. Man, I don't know. How did we come up with it? I think for a lot of startups coming in, right? I think the advice I would give or what's worked for us, and it's different for everybody, but you really need to anchor your visual identity to a narrative. And that's what we spent a lot of time thinking about. And like a lot of this stuff was very organic for us. Like as I came in to lead the marketing team, one thing kept coming up as I learned more about the product, more about our ICP, more about the pain points of our audience is like a lot of customers were feeling a tremendous amount of pain with security orchestration, automation, and response, SOAR, right? SOAR platforms,
Hmm.
these legacy automation platforms. And so as we started to understand that and really, again, get this like visceral reaction for
Yeah,
from our customers, we said, okay, well, what if we just said this old way of doing things, this SOAR platforms as a whole are dead. And that's really was the beginning of why we, went with this skeleton, motif. Like it wasn't, again, it almost was just like serendipitous that like, oh, this campaign worked and it became so recognizable. And I think it kind of gave us something to rally behind as a startup of like we're going to go take on Goliath, right? Like these legacy incumbents, these big store platforms from like Palo Alto and Cisco. These are old, and we're trying to come at it with a new story and a new angle. Um, and that's where we got this kind of very loud visual. I don't think we intended it to become the brand, but it works so well and people recognize it so quickly with the skeleton stuff that it just kind of organically became very much center to our visual identity.
sure. You've definitely cracked. You used the words there, differentiation, and I think it's a word we hear a lot when we're speaking to founders and marketing leaders who are looking to add people to their teams. Is there a secret sauce to doing that? Is there a rinse and repeat method?
No, I think when you even say the word differentiation, a lot of times we associate it with features and functions and product differentiation right away. Like everybody goes there first. Like, how are our specs better and different? How are our features better and different? But I think a lot of times that gets forgot when it comes to marketing, and differentiation just means being different. And so we think about that when you look at, everything in our industry, again, it looked very similar. And one thing that I think people forget in this space is you're not just competing with your competitors, right? Like product A, B, and C that do a similar thing. You're competing with culture as a whole and attention span. And we don't have attention spans, right? Like probably even people listening to this are like scrolling on a phone, in a Slack channel, looking at a Salesforce dashboard, right? Like everybody's doing a lot of things, right? And we don't have attention. And so for us, it was like, we need to make a brand, we need to create an identity, something that's going to break through that noise and
Yeah.
get your attention in this like infinite doom scroll culture we live in. And so for me, the DNA of the brand, like I need to see it and say that's Torq right away. And I need everybody else to feel that too. And when you do things like using pterodactyls and skeleton with laser eyes, that immediately grabs your attention and stands out from everything else on LinkedIn, specifically LinkedIn, that looks the same. And if you look at, a lot of companies in this space, they tend to have very similar looks, very similar feel, and they write the same. So yeah, differentiation for us is like everything needs to be different. You're going to sponsor an F1 car, we're going to sponsor a monster truck, right? So everything we think about is how do we kind of zag or zig or whatever, away from what everybody else is doing. And that's like also keeping people on their toes. You know what I mean? Like we want to be completely different at every turn. So we think about that a lot.
How do you like what is the internal process? Because when me and Georgia, our marketing manager, were thinking about doing this webinar, like we were thinking about like what's the internal process of coming up with such original ideas and content, not just you, as in like you and your
Sure.
team.
Well, I think that's it, right? Like I give so much credit to our internal team. I'd preface this by saying you can't do any of this stuff without a great product. You can't do any of this stuff without a great, support team, customer success team, and ultimately a sales team who can go out and sell it, right? You need all those components because anybody can do, you know, create great marketing, but then it falls down if the product doesn't deliver, or it falls down if sales don't sell it, right? So like there's a huge team behind Torq on our side, specifically marketing, man, I think there isn't really a process. I'm not super, you know, we get ideas from everywhere. And there, I don't say, hey, we're going to sit and we're going to brainstorm and come up with the idea here. I want people on the marketing team that are very plugged in to culture,
Mm.
specifically internet culture. I want you online. I want you looking at what's trending, what's new. Because I think interested, plugged in people have a way of bringing great ideas and then connecting dots. And for us, we look at a lot of just consumer brands, consumer industry stuff that we think, how can we take this idea and slant it into cybersecurity? Um, so yeah, there's not necessarily a process, but I give a tremendous amount of credit to our creative team, who I've worked with personally for years now. So like this team
Right.
came from my last startup, over and joined, and we kind of have a shorthand with each other, and they understand what we're looking for as a team, what we want to be as a brand. And I think once you get that alignment with your marketing team and an understanding of like this is the DNA of the company, how do we express it in marketing? You can go fast and do a lot of cool stuff.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Don. One of the questions, follow-up questions that I have for that is like, do you have like targets in terms of quantity when it comes to like that really creative content, or do you just focus more on quality? When you get the right idea, you'll put it out?
Well, I think every touch point, you know, is an opportunity to make an impression on a customer and get attention. And I
Mm.
think, there's certainly, big moments, flagship brand moments you want to create throughout the year. You think RSA, you think
Sure.
Black Hat for sure, InfoSec, right? There's moments you want to create. So I think about things in terms of like moments for the brand and what
Yeah,
can we do as a company, as a full team, from the founders to sales to marketing to product to make those moments count. What press release are we going to do ahead of RSA? How do we set the most amount of meetings? And so it's like if we start with moments, we were backwards and we think about every touch around that moment, we want to make special and creative and attention getting. And again, a lot of our approach is about attention, right? Like if you are, you know, I think a lot of times we think product, in this space, our product is the thing everyone wants to hear about. Our product, our baby is the thing. But the truth is these, CISOs and these security practitioners are flooded with everything about product. And for us, it's like, how do we entertain and get your attention first and then have the right to talk about our product or share with you, hey, we may know something about your pain point. But for us, a lot of it is, you know, the creative should be a vehicle for education and entertainment, not just, please come to our booth and get a demo.
sure. You mentioned RSA there, and obviously that's around the corner. And we've got our first question, by the way. So I'm going to ask this question,
Yeah.
anonymous attendee in follow-up. How do you approach big conferences like that? You call them moments then.
Um, I mean, we work as a team, we're constantly just throwing ideas around. And a lot of it just comes very organically. There's not like a meeting an opportunity where we're like, okay, idea time. It's we're collecting. I think great marketers need to collect ideas throughout the year, and a lot of times nothing will happen with those ideas. But if you build up, you know, a folder like an ammo folder of just things you're collecting through the year, and you're storing ideas and concepts, and just have trust that these dots will connect at some point, or that idea may be used down the road. Um, that's how we do it. So it's like we're constantly thinking like next year's RSA, next year's Black, just making ideas. But a lot of it just comes very serendipitous if you're plugged in and you're watching culture, I think. For like
Sure.
the Monster Jam came very, very, randomly. All the great stuff comes just not out of any one session, but just, you know, pulling it out of the universe. I think that it was so obvious that when everybody was doing F1s, like, well, what's the opposite of F1? And it's a big monster truck, right? So yeah, there's not like a. I wish there was a process. I wish there were like cheat codes on how to come up with this stuff, but it's a lot of just working with the team and collecting ideas over the years.
Awesome. So first question that we've got is on that subject really. So somebody said, do you think bigger events like RSA or smaller intimate events are better for brand building?
I think you got to be at the big ones. I really do. And it depends on what stage you're at. So I'm not just saying like a blanket statement, like go to every event, but you have to have a presence because if you think about it, you need both. Okay, there's not an answer of like do this or that. You need both because as customers and your audience sees you consistently showing up, that creates credibility just subconsciously. I've seen them, I've heard of them, I've seen them at multiple events. I think if you're going to go do RSA or Black Hat, I know a lot of teams do like just meetings only. That's fine. As long as somebody's there and showing up and you're driving awareness of your brand at those events, that's key. For us, every year we've tried to go bigger. I think that also psychologically sends something to the customer of like, this is viable, this is working, this is growing. We've landed really big customers the last handful of quarters, Virgin Atlantic, Uber, you know, um, Marriott, right? Like big names have come and I don't necessarily think those show up without doing years of conferences consistently
Sure.
because there is a sense of credibility that you establish. Now, the small events are super important to create that emotional connection, that intimacy with your audience, as far as like those round tables, being able to talk one to one. Equally important. They're just totally different. I think
Yeah.
that both you need a holistic mix of both for sure. I hope that answers the
Awesome.
question. And it again, a lot of this depends on stage. Like if you're seed or Series A, does it make sense to go spend a bunch of money at RSA or Black Hat? when you're so early. I'm not sure.
Sure. So you're telling us that you're going to go bigger again at RSA next
Every
month?
year, that's the
Yeah.
challenge, right? Every year I want to show up in a new way. It's not necessarily like my footprint needs to grow, but bigger in the sense of like, how do I go get attention? We have this opportunity, I think this is what we wanted is like people say, what is Torq going to do? We get that now, right? Like by doing the monster truck last year, now it's like, well, what do you do now, right? Everyone's like, hey, are you bringing the monster truck back? It's like, no, that was last year. I want to do new thing.
Yeah.
Marketing for us, it's this whole space, this whole industry is a lot of theater, okay? And we enjoy getting the opportunity to participate in that.
Awesome. I'm excited to see it. We've got the questions flowing in now, which is great. So thanks, everyone. I think it's a really good one here from another anonymous attendee, which is, what's your approach to an industry segment like public sector?
I don't think you need to change at all. I think that, marketing for a long time kind of romanticized all these very specific, unique messages. I get there's compliance and there's a whole host of things that you need to consider for public sector or, government. But at the end of the day, right, everybody's still a person in those industries. And I think I think our marketing, we really tried to early on create this sense of like a movement that you
Sure.
want, if you do it right, you want people to feel a part of it. Everybody says community a lot. But what it really is you need magnetism to say customers want to be a part of what you're doing, what you're building. And so I don't differentiate too much or delineate this message is for that audience. This message is for this audience. I don't have, 8 different nurtures depending on persona. We have one belief. It's that the old way of doing automation and orchestration is old. It's manual. It's people are tired of doing repetitive tasks. There's a talent shortage. These old SOAR platforms require a ton of, expertise and people to operate on them and build workflows. And we're just
Sure.
saying that that's the old way of doing it. That's dead. Here's, AI native Torq. We know how to do things a lot faster. It's easier to pick up. People love using the product. It's fun.
Yeah.
And so I don't care if you're in public sector, enterprise, or mid-market, or an MSSP. That's the story we're telling, and we have a solution for you. So I don't change my message really that much. Now there's certain things like thought leadership pieces, there might be white papers that we tailor towards that audience of their specific challenges. But the message, the brand narrative never changes for us.
Yeah. We've had a couple of questions on a similar sort of topic, which is kind of around like how much you should be investing in brand marketing at maybe like a Series A or an earlier stage startup with limited resources, maybe a more conservative executive team. I was expecting questions like this one. So
Yeah.
how would you go away? How would you go about
I mean, I'm not going to give you the ratio, like the percentage
that?
of, this is brand, this is demand, but I will say like I think brand leads to demand. Okay. And I think we've separated these out for too long. Like, oh, well, that's just go spend on programmatic demand. Go buy, paid display ads, paid search, go hammer these different channels that you can really measure. Go do a bunch of events. But if you don't have your brand narrative right, if you don't have a story that people connect with, if you're not able to create that emotional connection or get attention at all, are people really going to open the emails? Are people really going to click on the ads? Are people even going to be searching really for you? I think that we need to, at least what's worked for us is let's go get our narrative right, and then let's go find ways to, create attention and awareness about our brand. And if we started with that, we didn't start with this really dense product marketing demand combo, which is like, the favorite value meal for marketers and the least risk, by the way, because every founder, and I can say this, I think, pretty safely. Founders are technical people, okay? And all they want to do is talk about their product because it's their baby, okay? I talked about this at Cyber Marketing Con. Shout out to Gianna. They want to talk about it all day. Look at my baby. It's the best baby. Look at how smart my baby is. Look at what my baby can do. It's founders want to talk just about that because they're proud of it and they should be. The challenge is that no one really cares about the product if you're new. Nobody really knows you, and you don't have the real right to take the attention to talk about your product. You need to get attention, but you're not going to get attention saying, look at these features and functions, these specs of my product. They're really cool. No one cares. And so once you understand that, and founders are going to always want to start with product marketing, but the truth is no one's going to be better at product marketing than the founders. Just work with them. It's the marketer's job to figure out how to take that story, how to take those features and functions, and come up with a narrative, a story, messaging and positioning, a visual identity that's going to get people excited and want to be a part of that story and be a part of that journey with the founders and their product. And so I think you invest at the beginning on that heavily. Great content and great, brand around that story. Get the market to understand that there might be a new way to do things. There's a new solution to an old problem. Instead of, I'm going to do a bunch of programmatic spend on these demand channels that I can measure, but is never going to work because nobody knows you. So that's my thought. I hope that answers the question. I think I love brand spend. I have to watch it because left to my own devices, I will put most of it in brand. Um, Go out and do a lot of events. Okay, like that's something that I think is almost, be impossible to ignore at events. Get the right people in the booth, make sure that they understand how to tell that story, that narrative really well. Make sure they have the high energy and are fun and people want to be around them. Get great SEs to give the demos, right? Like make sure the demo's engaging. If you do those things right, a lot of stuff takes care of itself. But I do think that we tend to veer into product marketing and then just demand gen. And you think our job is done here, and for a long time, nobody's thought about brand in this space.
Mm, that's really interesting. We've had a couple of other questions. Shout out to Damon and another anonymous about like what's your approach to ABM?
I mean, when you're selling into the Fortune 500, like we are Fortune 100 even, like a lot of it's ABM. I think ABM is, like kind of this like buzzword thing that's kind of become, I don't know if it's in style or out of style. Know your customers. Like we're not going to break out. And we might just not be there maturity wise yet, but like we're not going and doing a unique plan for each of our targets. We're not doing that yet. I don't even think a company like Torq Series E is at that stage quite yet. I think when you get more mature, you get there, but we haven't done like a very specific ABM strategy. Probably should. Probably need to get there quickly. But it's not something we've really invested in this, industry-wide narrative that we're trying to tell. So that's kind of where we're at.
Do you think every business, every startup can do that like industry-wide narrative, the same messaging? Or do you think it's specific to an organization like, like an AI SOC, for example, which is quite, it's trendy tech, isn't
It's too trendy. Yeah. All of a
it?
sudden, everyone's, wanting to get in on this space. Our timing, we feel very well positioned. We've been here. We've been telling this
Yeah.
story for years now. And now there's a bunch of, you know, companies coming out of stealth. There's like, I saw a report, there's like 50 plus AI stock
Yeah, there is.
vendors. Woof, and best of luck. It's, I don't know. I don't know. We do have, but here's the thing too, is like I feel like a lot of startups want to do a lot. Okay. And we've been guilty of this as well in the past, where it's like, oh, well, we look at all these use cases we can do. And this is something where it's very hard and you have to be very disciplined to understand where do we win and where can we carve out where's the right ASP, where's the largest TAM, how do we go show what we're best at and become ubiquitous with that? Because in the early stages, Series A, B, you're taking anything you can get, right? You're saying, oh, we can do that. We can do that. We can do that. But as you mature, you're going to get a sense or a trend of, okay, this is what's really working for us. And I think, I would encourage marketers, especially, to be paying attention to the gong calls, listen to customer calls, listen to those like aha moments with customers where they really light up because you've hit a real pain point that they're looking to solve, and figure out if you can find, repetition in that. I think ideally, not everybody's going to be a massive platform that can do all these different things. There's a real attraction to that early on, but for the marketers, that ends up being really hard because you have to tell all these different stories. And now suddenly you have all these different audiences, right? There's a team and identity that you have to go after. There's the security architects you have to go, and that's really hard. So I think like your goal should get, in my view, for startups, get to a point where you can tell one story really consistently, because that's how you're actually going to get awareness. Telling the same story over and over, become ubiquitous with your category, and learn to say, maybe not. Maybe we don't want that. Yeah, there's an opportunity there, or there's things that we can go chase over here. But we're really good at this one thing, and the market's not going to know much about us. We want them to know this one thing about us that we're better at than anybody else. And for us, that's AI SOC, right? Like we want to help security operation teams do more with less by leveraging AI. We think we can drive automation in a new way that's way better than anything else that's been done before. And so that's our focus, and that's what we're super committed to. That's the DNA of our team. And so I tell that story over and over and over, and I don't care if you're enterprise or mid-market or, a
Yeah,
government agency. I'm telling that story.
sure. Great. Appreciate that, Don. Another question that's coming from Damon is about, I think this is an interesting one. You mentioned like measuring before, particularly with the brand related stuff. Like, do you measure it? How do you measure return on investment?
I I joke about attribution. Good luck. Okay, like I think marketers spend a lot of time trying to justify, measure, and report on. And I'm telling you, if you do this right, if the marketing's working, the whole company will know. And you don't have to spend as much time in the dashboards working with RevOps, trying to prove it's working. Of course, you need to measure, but I think that a lot of times marketers get hung up on the measurement, reporting, and showing ROI of every dollar spent, and that's you have to work with your leadership team to understand and to gain alignment on what we're going to report on. But I think marketing has gotten really in the weeds on reporting and measurement and over measurement. There's certain things you got to be comfortable with that you're not going to be able to directly measure. A lot of the out of home stuff, a lot of the brand investment is not easy to measure. And you have to have the trust with your leadership team and align on those decisions, right? I didn't just go and sign a massive Monster Jam partnership agreement or sponsorship by myself, right? I worked with our CRO, gained alignment, said this will be cool. Like we agreed, let's go do this. Let's go do a 16 city tour. It's not going to be direct, super measurable, but we're going to create great emotional connections with our customers. We're going to get a lot of content we're going to look bigger than we really are, right? And so to me, it's like, you got to be comfortable. Not everything's measurable, but you also have to have great alignment with your other leadership team members on the plan. So you're not surprising anybody. And then when it comes time to, well, did that work? Well, saying we don't know entirely how it worked. We have an idea directionally what's working. And wow, look at our LinkedIn followers. Look at these different, leading indicators of awareness and traction in our market. But I think again, like sometimes we get so over indexed on the measurement to prove the value of marketing. And if you're in that mode, you need to find a way out because there's so many different ways to measure things and you can get lost. Um, Measure your events. Measure the things that are like, hey, how many leads do we get from that event? How many demo requests did we get from the event? From those demo requests, how many converted into an op? From those ops, how many converted to close one? That type of measurement, go figure that out for your events. But there's going to be things, if you do at least the playbook that's worked for us, that you just got to, there's a bit of a trust fall, that you have to have.
If there's marketing leaders that feel like they're kind of like stuck in the weeds a little bit with maybe a founder that they're working with or something like that, how would you advise them approaching that situation?
I think it starts before you even go to the company, to be honest. Like, that's probably not a great answer for people who are in it right now, but you got to spend a lot of time communicating. Okay. Like, that's the whole key to doing, I think, marketing now is figuring out how do you communicate and set expectations of where you're putting your dollars, where you're spending, and what you expect to get out. Um, and let data drive that, right? Like let data guide you. But if you're in the middle of that, where you feel like you're having to measure or prove ROI, it's almost like how do you change the conversation, right? And say, what are the expectations? I'm spending a lot of time reporting on what's been done. You need to start looking out and saying, what do I need to do to drive the ROI that I'm being measured on? Because again, a lot of times we're looking back, spending a lot of time looking back at performance versus saying, what do I need to do going forward? And getting that alignment is super key.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. I think that'll be really helpful for people. Um, what are your thoughts on go-to-market engineering, Don? That's another question.
I don't know.
Thanks,
That's
Daniel.
like one of those other buzzwords, right? I think Clay, the marketing, excuse me, the marketing platform came up with that term to
Yeah.
justify roles to go buy their product. I think it's brilliant. Look it up. Go to market engineer. Who coined that term? I'm pretty sure that's Clay. Can someone tell me what that is? Because I don't know. It seems like just a new brand on RevOps to me. I think that's what it
I
is. I
can't.
don't
Don't look at
know
me.
if someone can put in the chat the definition of GTM engineer. I think it's just RevOps. Right? I'm gonna close my window. I think it's RevOps. Can someone tell me?
Come on, chat. What have you got?
Yeah, is go-to-market engineer just a fancy new term for RevOps?
Um, Google's telling me go-to-market engineering is the specialized technical discipline of building automated data-driven systems that connect marketing, sales, and product teams to
Okay.
accelerate revenue growth.
Now ask what revenue operations is. I
Feel like
think
we're
it's the
going down
same
a
thing.
rabbit hole here.
Yeah, I think that the answer is I don't know. I think it's revenue operations.
Sure. So you would kind of you wouldn't use that new term. You'd just be let's focus on revenue operations.
Yeah, and you gotta have great partners in that, right? Like shout out our RevOps team. They do so much for us, and marketing ops as a whole too. Like the back end of this machine, this engine is a ton of work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what GTM go-to-market engineers. I think a fancy new term for RevOps.
Okay. All right. Um, there's a couple of other questions that I'm keen to get to here. One of them, Don, is related to like many customers are now using ChatGPT, Perplexity, other AI research tools. How have you adapted this to this AI SEO?
Oh yeah, we've spent a ton of time with that. I mean, AI search or SEO search has changed dramatically, right? And it's no longer just about your content. Okay. So just write 100 blogs. I remember a handful of years ago, she's like, how many blogs have we written this week? We need more blogs on this topic or that topic or whatever. AI for I think good thing that has happened is they value third party validation a lot. And that means you got to go understand how to get your content picked up, right? And whether that's like bylines or earned media, right? You need to figure out ways to constantly be in the press. You need great reviews, right? With Gartner Peer Insights, PeerSpot, G2. You need to be referenced elsewhere. It's like, I read a stat somewhere. I'm gonna like make it up, but what is it? It's like, hold on, let me pull it up here because we were just talking about this um, as a team. AI search, what is it? I think it's an Air Ops study. If anybody has seen it, um, it's like Air Ops search. I don't want to make it up, the stat, but like third party sources drive 85% of brand discovery. Um,
Wow.
and so like I think with AI search, it's just changed to that where now you need third party sites. It's no longer about just you saying, right, writing listicles about your AI SOC. You need to go, it's about viable, like real content that's that's validated elsewhere. And I think that that's actually really good because this means that, you know, you got to go have analysts talking about you. You have to have media talking about you. You have to be well reviewed on these sites. So I think that's cool. And that's what we're focused on. You'll notice, I don't think that there's, you know, in our space, we're in the media all the time, and we're one of the most talked about cybersecurity companies on the planet right now. That's by design. We know we have to be, and not just because we want people discovering us or reading about us in the press, but we need to be discoverable. And we know AI search. It's really important to have a real solid media plan.
So that media plan specifically, like how do you approach that? Is there any little ideas or tactics that you've got that you feel like have been super successful? Because I think you're absolutely right. Like Torq is everywhere. Definitely in my algorithm anyway.
Well,
So
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, you need people talking about you. How do people talk? Why do people talk about you? Because you're doing cool stuff, right? And like this is back to kind of, excuse me, the foundation of everything. It's like get attention at any cost. Okay,
Right.
great social, have great innovation that your product team is driving. Go tell that story in ways that are interesting to people. The media will want to talk about that, right?
Sure.
So it seems really basic, but like go be able to tell a story that people, especially media, are going to pick up. We did a Monster Jam partnership. Forbes is talking about brand marketing in cybersecurity because of this sponsorship, this partnership we had with Monster Jam, right? It's human interest stories. It's not all about just your product. So you need to find ways to tell stories that people want to hear. And that's on the marketing team. It's on the PR team. We have a great PR team here, and it's on product marketing, right? Get the reviews coming in, customer success. It's a whole team effort, but you got to be really driven to be top of mind all the time. And the way you do that is by doing good work. Seems very basic, but
Good marketing.
good
Good marketing.
marketing. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. You talked about cost there. So going back to RSA, like, can you give us any hints just before we wrap up about what you guys
Yeah,
have got planned?
I think, if you go to torq.io and you click the little pixelated skeleton there on the home page, you get a
Sure.
view of what we're doing. We
Right.
have an insanely like we had to get, clearance from RSA to go this big. We have an insane inflatable skeleton. We worked with the team behind the MTV VMA Awards, and we're going really, really big. Again, our goal was go bigger than a monster truck, and that monster truck was huge. So we
Right.
want to have, we want to surprise and delight customers and prospects. We want to have fun and show that we're having fun. If marketing's not having fun, you have a problem. And so we want, and if you're boring, you're invisible, right? Like on that floor and at RSA. And so we really look at RSA as an opportunity to, put on a great show and entertain this community of cybersecurity professionals. We also have a tattoo truck. That was a legal, nightmare to navigate. But real tattoos, you know, like I think there's like six or nine flash designs that we've approved. They're permanent. These are not henna tattoos. We have henna tattoos as well, but this is a full-on permanent tattoo truck that you can go get a tattoo. So that'll be cool.
Wow.
And then we have all sorts of sponsorships. We'll be at the St. Regis doing demos and meetings the whole week. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That sounds amazing. Heard it here first. Talk tattoos. Um,
Yeah.
right. We've got a couple of final questions and then we'll wrap
Okay.
up. Don, there's one about like measuring the impact of the monster truck investment. Have you been able to do that? Like how?
It worked. Again, that's one of those things where it's like, we had a lot of big customer names in our suite. Here's what I'll say too. CISOs don't want any more happy hours. Okay. They've had enough. They've had enough dinners. They've had enough, like we're looking again, every opportunity we can to create a differentiated experience with our customers. That's what we want to do. And, you need to find a way to create an emotional connection. How do you create an emotional connection? Bring them to something they haven't done and tell them they can bring their kids. These CISOs, the security audience, again, they're every week there's happy hours. They gotta have to be away from home. We were able to bring their kids into the suite. We had toys, We had our Torq plushie, we had Monster Jam trucks. We were creating a connection with people. And that's immeasurable, I would say. And we made a lot of Forbes wrote about it. So like I think we looked different and we looked bigger than we were. And that was a measurement for us. And then by all accounts, like it was a blast. We have people asking what's the tour dates this year. So we're we're navigating what our response is. We're not going to have Gravedigger at RSA, but will we be on tour with Gravedigger TBD?
Wow. Well, I think that's a pretty perfect note to end on. I'm just going to ask one final question,
Yeah.
which is, and I think this is going to be a hard one for you to answer, but if you had one key takeaway from today's session, what would it be? Is there one thing that people
I
should
think
take
it's be
away?
different. I think it's be try at every corner to be different, right? Differentiation is not limited to product features and functions. That's what we've thought of differentiation as. For marketers, you need to find a way to differentiate and not just messaging and positioning, everything,
Yeah,
every touch, every experience you can create. Think about ways to be different, and do things in a special way that's unique to your brand DNA. That would be, my takeaway.
awesome. I know we've just had my favorite question of the whole webinar, which is, are webinars still worth doing? I hope this one was worth doing.
Man, I don't think we call them webinars, but they are what they are. You can't, you can rebrand them all you want, live, whatever. Look, we're all stuck on these screens, okay? We're
Yeah,
all behind these screens sitting here. Hopefully it's interesting. I think it comes back to the content, right? You have to entertain. You have to find ways to make it worth people's time. If you get on and drone on and on about your product for an hour, are people going to enjoy it? I don't know. If they're looking for your product, sure, but I don't know. I mean, we're testing everything. Who knows?
sure.
Webinars may have a big year in 2026.
Well, I think this one was worth doing.
This is great, Tom. I
Yeah,
love talking to you. And we love
yeah,
HubScale. Here at
yeah.
Torq, we love HubScale.
Wow, what a note to end on. Well, we love talk as well, and I can't wait to see you next month.
Yeah, man, it'll be fun. Thanks for having me. Always enjoy our conversation.
Yeah, always a
Okay,
pleasure, man.
cool.
And
All right.
thanks everyone for joining. See you later.
Thanks.
Bye.